afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Emily Formby from Charity Recruit, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you into our boardroom session today. And I think it's a topic that feels increasingly relevant as we head towards 2025. So we're talking about culture and strategy and sustainable growth. Whether you're thinking about leadership changes, fundraising growth, or future-proofing for your organisation, we really hope that you get something practical from today and not just the theory side. We're really thrilled to be joined by Matthew, founder of Social Intent. He's an experienced interim CEO and strategic advisor who's worked across the charity, public sector and private sectors, helping organisations lead through complexity, embedded purpose, and growing with confidence. So there'll be plenty of time for discussion at the end. So if you do have any questions, feel free to either pop them in the chat or save them for the end, and we'll do a quick Q&A. So yeah, I think with that, over to you, Matthew, and thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all tucking into your lunch. For those people that got their cameras off, I would be too if I was on the other end of this, I must admit. But nonetheless, thank you all for joining, and thank you to Charity Recruit in particular for asking me to deliver this session on their behalf. I will go on a little bit further on about who I am and my background. There are a couple of people that I see in the room that I've worked with before, so hello to those people. But without much wasting time and trying to elongate things as much as possible, let's get cracking. Let me hope that the slide share works. Given the Zoom issues that everyone had yesterday, let's pray we don't have them today. But nonetheless, let's get going. So you're all aware why you're here. Really to listen to me spout on for the next 25-30 minutes about how strategy really brings alive through your culture. We've all heard this phrase before: culture eats strategy for breakfast. May I ask, before we really get into this, how many of you can quickly articulate, and I'm not going to ask you to articulate it now, but just by raising your hands on the Zoom, how many of you can easily and quickly articulate what your strategy is? Just pop your hand up if you think, yeah, I could do that in 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Dead easy. Is anyone able to get their hands up? Or is it really difficult to articulate your strategy, to articulate your purpose? Is it more difficult to say, actually, this is the direction we're going in? Well, hopefully through this, we'll be able to get somewhere close to understanding how strategy and culture really do combine to deliver excellent performance in an organisation. Another name I've just seen join that knows me. Moving on. Next slide is really, I don't agree that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I really believe that the two are so connected that any high-performing organisation has both a strategy which is excellent and a culture which fits very closely aligned to that strategy, and people buy into and believe in. People buy into and believe a strategy and believe in the culture of an organisation and live and breathe that culture. Why do I believe that? Well, let me tell you a little bit about us at Social Intent and me. We are a specialist consultancy boutique agency that brings together the corporate sector and the charitable sectors. Whether it's about short-term tactical advantages or long-term strategic impact, we've done a lot of that stuff through myself and through the team that I work with. Through looking at what you currently do and reshaping and refocusing that to helping set up new stuff. we like to be known as a critical friend. We like to ask those difficult questions. We like to ask the questions that perhaps others in the organisation won't ask, including trustees. We want to be the ones which really make you think. We want to be the ones that help you really define a strategy which is right for the future, but also then aligning that with your culture and with the impact that you make as an organisation. Because we all know that without strategy and without the right culture, an organisation really struggles to perform. So why does all this matter? Really, let's get back to basics. And you all know this. You know, your strategy is all about where you are heading and really what you want to achieve over a period of time. Not over a short period of time, but over a long period of time. So, for example, what do you want to be able to say? We've achieved this in the last 5 years in your strategy. And your strategy document really brings that alive. The purpose underpins that strategy. It is your vision. It is your mission. I don't like visions and missions. I like to wrap it all up into a purpose. The bit that everyone hangs their coat off, the bit that everyone really believes in as your organisation. It's the bit that you would sell to your next door neighbour when they ask you, what do you do? It's the bit that you would say to Richard Branson in the elevator when he says, who are you and where do you work for? How can I help you? And then the culture bit is the bit that underpins all of that, which is how the organisation behaves, and alongside that, how people perceive you. And I apologise if I'm teaching you all there how to suck eggs and that you know all about this more so than I do. But really, this is a process. And really, it all comes alive through all of the bits being brilliant. So strategy and culture lead to your delivery, which leads to your impact. So through great articulation of your strategy and great culture will deliver, and I promise you this, great impact. And we all know that your great impact evidence can really bring alive your fundraising activity or your beneficiary engagement or your reporting back to commissioners. So really, it's a cyclical process, but nonetheless, it is a process where strategy is the real starting point of it all. I keep pressing the wrong button. So just to reiterate again, strategy, clear plan for achieving those long-term goals. It's not a massive document that usually comes in your business plan. It's not something which gathers dust. It's something which guides your organisation. The culture bit is that value. What do you actually stand for as an organisation? What do we believe in? And what are the normal behaviours that brings that all alive? Now, we've all heard the water cooler moments of, oh, this is the way that we do things around here. We've always done it that way. Perhaps that's some of the things that need to change in your culture. But when you get, as I keep saying, your strategy and your culture really strongly aligned, they drive performance. Culture really is your engine. It's the bit that drives the whole organisation. It takes people with you and it translates your performance indicators written in your strategy and in your business plan into daily behaviours. Today, you guys all are sitting there thinking there's not enough money coming in because it's very difficult to secure funding at this moment in time because of the competition. How do you keep a team motivated during that period of time? How do you keep an organisation positively moving forward to deliver your KPIs when it's very difficult to secure funds? It's the culture, it's the behaviours, it's the values which really help underpin that. Keeping true to your strategy and keeping true to your culture will inspire people to keep performing and delivering. How does culture kickstart your strategy? Starts from the top, from you as the CEO, you as the leader of your team, you as a leadership person. What's key within all of this is communication, clarity, openness, consistency of your communication, particularly around how you are performing against your strategy. And aligned to that is how your values really bring that alive. I've kind of gone on about the theory for too long. Let me give you a bit of an example of the work that I've done. So I spent 6 months, which turned into 4 years, as an interim CEO for Gordon Moody. Gordon Moody was an organisation which delivered, or still does for that matter, residential treatments for those most affected by addiction, particularly from gambling addiction. It was an organisation which was plodding along at £1 million turnover, treating 75 people a year, and a lot of people were plodding along in their jobs, kind of just turning up at 9 o'clock, leaving at 5 o'clock, and I must say, bored in their jobs. They'd heard all this stuff about strategy and that we should be doing this, and the organisation wants to do that, and never really saw any action. So one of the key things that I and my leadership team did was really sit down and define what our strategic direction and our strategic intent was, so that the whole organisation could quickly and easily understand what the strategic intent was of the organisation and repeat that quickly. So number one in that strategic intent for us was delivering the highest quality services that we possibly could, which was supported by the highest quality staff and staff development that we could deliver. Number two was gathering the evidence of impact that we delivered as an organisation. So we had the quality, then we had the impact. Number three, linked to quality again, was ensuring that our facilities were of the right quality so that people wanted to come to us, wanted to spend time with us, and wanted to be a part of the treatment journey that we delivered. When I arrived, I must admit, I wouldn't have let my dog stay in some of the buildings that we had. But through investment and through support, we were able to turn the quality round. Number four was ensuring that we could treat more people. How did we do that? Well, through our quality, through our evidence of impact, and through raising more funds, which I must admit, once we got the strategy right and the strategic intent and our purpose right, raising those funds comparatively wasn't a difficult job. And we grew from about 1.5 million when I first arrived, as I said, to about 7 million when I left after 4 years. But more importantly, treating 500 people. But the more important part of this was the performance of the organisation. You know, rapid growth leads to mistakes, and we made those mistakes. Don't get me wrong, we weren't perfect. But nonetheless, what really underpinned all of this was the culture of the organisation. Through the openness, through being communicative, through living and breathing the values of the organisation, we had an organisation which was, I must say, engaged, enthused, and excited about the future. And what that meant was the quality of the service improved more than we ever thought it would. It improved because of the quality of the staff delivering the services were there on a daily basis because they wanted to be there, rather than it's just a job where I'm getting paid 9 to 5. That actually they were inspired to go that little bit extra, to do that little bit more, to be that little bit better in themselves, to challenge themselves, to test themselves, to really take it to the next level. So ultimately, by the time I'd left, and I was exhausted after 4 years, I must admit, what we really had was an organisation which was high performing in a direction which was very clear, and with a culture which people bought into, both long-term established staff that have been there for 10, 15 years, right the way through to those people that have been there 10 or 15 weeks. And they really believed in what we were trying to achieve. Let me move us on to the next slide. So I've talked a lot about strategy and culture, but let me just reiterate how to build this culture to deliver your strategy. Having that clarity on your strategic intent so that it's simple and easy to both communicate and live and breathe by is the most important part in delivering this high performance. You have to then identify your cultural enablers and blockers. Some of those blockers will be people that don't want to live and breathe by this culture. Some of the people won't want to be a part of it, and that's fine. Some people will be able to be coached and developed and moved into that way of working. But ultimately, there will be some people who aren't right for the job. And I must say that if you do deal with people like that, then the quicker, the easier, and the simpler you do so, the less painful it will be, not just for them, but also for their manager and for the organization as a whole. Defining your values and your behaviors is vitally important. I'm sure there are HR people on this call that are nodding their heads going, totally agree with you. But as a senior leader, living and breathing those values yourself, acting professionally, turning up on time, being accountable, are all values which people will see and want to be a part of. But more importantly, really understanding the difference that your organization makes and the value that underpins that and the behavior that's required to deliver that really brings it alive. Aligning your systems, your incentives and your structures to enable that for that to happen, should I say, is vitally important as well. Incentivizing your staff to raise more funds, for example, by not just paying them a good salary, but bringing in other incentives as well, which can really inspire people, not just monetary, but other benefits as well, can really drive organization performance and bring alive your values and behaviors. Ensuring that your structure allows for clear, open communication can really make a big difference. Leading by example, not just as a CEO, as which some of you are on the call, but also that example of every leader in the organization, whether that be your front of house individual right the way through to the CEO and everywhere in between. They are all leaders in your organization. They all have to lead by example, live and breathe those values to really bring them alive. And again, just to reiterate, that's done through measuring, feeding back, and evolving your culture and your strategy to deliver that. Measuring the performance. Nobody likes to be performance managed. Nobody really likes to do 360 performance reviews on an annual basis. Nobody really likes negative feedback. But actually, it can really inspire people to improve and to align themselves more closely to what they're trying to achieve. There's a really simple matrix which we use at Social Intent to try and bring alive how culture and strategy are within an organization. And what we find is that where you've got a strong culture and where you've got a strong alignment to a supportive part of your strategy, you build a high-performing organization, which is top right. Where you don't have a strong alignment to strategy and a resistance to culture, or vice versa, you end up with conflict. A lot of people antagonistic around, I don't believe in this organization. Where you've got a weak culture and perhaps a strong strategy, you get confusion. You get confusion over, what's my role in this? Where do I actually sit? Where's my role compared to my friend's role over there? Or why is HR doing this job when finance should be doing this job? Or why is operations looking after recruitment when HR should be? For example, I'm just citing some of the things which we dealt with at Gordon Moody there. And then where you've got poor culture and a weak strategy, all hell breaks loose. Nobody knows which direction they're heading in. You have silos being developed. You have an organization which is unable to raise the funds that it's needing. It doesn't have clarity on its purpose and really has to be looking to itself to say, what the heck are we actually turning up to work every day? You'd have a lot of people going off sick. You'll have a lot of people phoning in with duvet days, etc., etc. The performance of the organization will really be struggling. Hopefully none of you are in that position and all of you are somewhere in that high performing position. If not, please reach out and we can have a discussion about how you might be able to move on in there. So I'm going to come back to the first question that we asked and open this up now to a bit of discussion and questions. But do you really know what your intent is? Can you say it quickly? I might pick up one or two people in the room, if I may. If anyone wants to put their hand up to say, yeah, actually, I will say something. And I might pick on people I know. Caroline, do you know the intent of DKMS? Do you know what the purpose is of the organisation? Are you able to articulate that quickly?
I don't know, you're going to pick me, Matt. Ish is what I would answer that. So DKMS is a blood cancer charity, and we would like to ensure that every person who needs a stem cell transplant gets one. The way we get there, and you know, Matt, you know us, and I think, you know, as head of fundraising and part of the senior leadership team, I'm in a position where I can kind of see what the fundraising intent is, you know, and where we need to go and what we need to do. I'm not sure, in the past we've always been quite aligned with the organisational intent. So we're actually doing an awful lot of work at the moment in this very field. So I will be reaching out to you afterwards.
And may I ask, off the back of that, what do you think that does to the culture in the organisation, given that you have this position at the moment where perhaps you're not all aligned across the organisation? What does that mean to the culture?
I would say culture is, and you know, this is something that we're really, and you know, Matt, I've been here for a long time, I've been here for 10 years, and I don't think it's something that we've ever got right for various reasons. And now I think that the culture is very much the topic of the day. But what it does is it just causes, as you said, chaos, conflict, confusion. You know, lack of overall strategy is a lack of direction. If we don't know where we're going, we don't know how to get there. You know, it just causes huge organizational problems. I totally agree with you. I sometimes struggle with kind of vision and mission. For me, it's all about purpose. Why are we here? What are we here to do? Let's focus on that. And I think, you know, having that aligned purpose where everyone knows exactly and can literally answer your question in one sentence is really where we want to be. That's for sure.
Thanks. Anyone else got any comments that's in the room, or are you still mulling over what's been discussed so far? I might pick on somebody else. I might go to a male in a second, but he's smiling already because he knows who I'm going to pick on. Tom, tell us.
Just get it over and done with then. Good to see you again, Matthew.
You too, my friend.
I saw this pop up in my emails a little while ago, and I thought, Matthew Hickey's leading this. I have to attend. Plus, it's really timely for my organisation as well. Thank you for having me, by the way. So I work for a homeless organisation. I'm in the fundraising team. We're based in East London, and our CEO, who's been with us for nearly 9 years, is leaving. We're getting an interim guy in, and everything looks positive. But I guess I'm looking at my other screen with the sort of 4 blocks on it. We deliver a lot of services for some really complex and very needy homeless people. I guess our kind of elevator pitch is we're supporting some of the most complex homeless people to get off and stay off the streets, and we deal with everything kind of in between that enables that. We've got about 13 services that all interlink in some way. I'd say there's elements of high performance, but I wouldn't say conflicts, but there's been a few elements of chaos because of the number of services, a few elements of confusion probably where people are overworked. Their remit is so spread, working with a complex client group where we've also got to deal with problem behaviours in our day centre. So yeah, we've got this sort of mishmash of everything going on in that chart that you showed. How the new CEO deals with that, I don't know. I don't want their job. So we'll wait and see how it goes. But there's a huge amount of potential for high performance. The culture is good. People are generally supportive of each other. But there are just little bits of conflict and chaos and confusion that sort of seep in. So good luck to them.
Do you think that's because of a lack of clarity on what your purpose is? Or do you think everyone buys into what the purpose of the organisation is?
I think everyone buys into the purpose. I think the tricky thing is people are so, I wouldn't say overworked, but maybe there's an element of that. They're so deeply involved in what they're doing because, again, I don't want to say it too many times, the client's really quite complex. Yeah. There is a lot of need, a huge amount of work that needs to be done by each team with those people they're supporting, that I think they just don't have the ability to then see the bigger picture sometimes. And I think that causes problems because then I think they lose the focus of the whole organisation by, I guess, focusing on their remit a little bit more.
Thanks. Before we move on to the next couple of slides, is there anyone else that wants to say anything or raise anything or bring anything to the fore at this point? It's fine if not. It's always difficult, isn't it, when you're on these calls and whether you should put your hand up or not. I do realise. Let me move on to the next. Oh, sorry, there is a hand up. Sorry, I just saw it come up. It disappeared on me though. Where did that
I think
go?
it's Catherine. Do you want to go ahead, Catherine?
Hi, everyone. I just want to kind of reiterate, sorry, I didn't get your name on the last speaker.
Tom.
We work with refugees up on the Wirral, and a similar situation, dealing with very complex needs and lots of vulnerabilities. So you kind of end up taking everything on board, and it's very difficult to say no. And I think that's where some of our chaos and confusion comes in as well. In terms of culture, positive, everybody working in the organisation, all the volunteers we have are very bought into the kind of the ethos and the culture of the organisation. But we just end up doing providing too many services, basically.
What I would say there, if you don't mind me saying it, is your strategy is not quite working for you then. Actually, you are being paid to deliver X and Y, and you're ending up delivering X and Y because that's what you're paid to deliver if you've got commission services, for example. But also, you're wanting to deliver 1 and 2 as well because that's what the clients are demanding. And it's always, particularly in charitable organisations, a really difficult thing to say no to that 1 and 2. Now, we had it at Gordon Moody in the, sorry, I was just sorry for cutting across you. It's one of the most important parts when setting your strategy to ensure that you have that flexibility to do X and Y and 1 and 2 and still get paid for it, because otherwise you'll just burn out as an organisation. Sorry, I was cutting across you there. Apologies.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And I think that's what the issue is. It seems like it's an ever-changing sector to be working in. So, you know, 1 minute we've got, you know, hundreds of Ukrainians coming to the area. The next minute we've got dealing with the you know, the after effects of the riots and then the protests this summer. And then now at the moment, we've got a huge amount of homelessness that we're having to deal with as people are getting their leave to remain and there's no housing. So we're just kind of having to, you know, we end up having to firefight, and you can't turn away somebody who's homeless because there's no other services in the area to help them other than housing options who don't help them. So.
Yes. Yeah, the only thing I can add in that is, you know, a strategy isn't something which sits on a shelf. It is something which is an organic, agile document. It is something which needs to evolve with time. But also, when you do evolve your strategy, you have to evolve your budget which sits with it.
Exactly.
You have to realign your budget. You know, if the weighting at the moment is on, for example, Ukrainian support, and I know that's in the past, but nonetheless, use it as an example, where can you dial down? Because you've only got a finite amount of money to deliver what you've got to deliver. And as a charity, you really don't want to be going into deficit. I mean, you might, we all know that we do. But nonetheless, what can you switch on and switch off during that period of time? And that's where your strategy as your guiding light allows you to focus and balance all of that side of things, which is easier said than done. Let me move on to the next slide. I'm mindful of time a little bit. But thank you for your comments, Catherine. Here's the next question for you. Which behaviours in your organisation really bring your strategy alive? You know, Tom, Catherine, and Caroline have all talked about how the culture's good in the organisation. But what is it about the culture that brings your strategy alive? The fact that, you know, your focus is on ensuring that all people on the Wirral are housed, if that's what your strategy says. What culture, what behaviours within your culture really bring that alive? And I'm only picking on you, Catherine, because you're the face that is on my screen at the moment. I don't know if anyone else has got any comments around where they've used or have evidence of behaviours really bringing your strategy alive by, you know, people turning up and going that extra mile all the time, perhaps.
I think for us it's been an advocate for vulnerable people, and being a really strong voice and partnering ourselves with people, with other organisations who can kind of support us in that, in, you know, reaching our ultimate goal. For example, we have a homelessness lawyer that comes in every Monday to work through the homelessness cases to make sure that Wirral Council are law abiding, which they're often not.
Yeah, I think Matt, carry on again. I think for us, so one of our values is to be fair, is fairness, and a bit of an example of how we've kind of brought that to life is this year. So we know that there are inequalities on the aligned stem cell register. So, you know, as you know, what we do is we provide matches for people with blood cancer, and we know that there is a real inequality that exists in terms of, you know, if you're white Northern European, you're more likely to get a stem cell donation, for a match to be found. And so what we've done this year is that we've focused an out of home campaign very much on addressing that lack of fairness on the registry, and we've worked with a particular agency that are very much entrenched in how to bring diversity into the public domain, you know. So it's very closely aligned to one of our strategies.
That's
you
a
know,
great
our
example.
strategy
That's
is
really
about
great.
fairness, and now we've done this out of home campaign that is about addressing that. And we did a lot of you know, we, as well as working with the agency, yeah, we had focus groups and those sorts of things, and it was about speaking with the right voice for the right people, you know.
Yeah, that's a great example. I'll move on to the next slide. Sorry for cutting over. What blocks delivery? Money? Yeah, we all know that. People can block delivery. But really, what blocks your delivery? You know, Tom talked there about people being overworked. Overworked leads to frustration, leads to burnout, leads to illness, leads to lots of people being utilizing not just holiday, but also sick leave, etc., etc. That can have a real impact on delivery. But people not believing in your culture can lead to massive issues with delivering as well. You know, we've all appointed people in the past who haven't quite fitted in an organization for whatever reason, and it's had a real negative impact on a team or on a whole business for that matter. When you do get that, the only thing I can suggest is that you act swiftly. You, as senior leaders, know when someone fits. You know when they are aligned to your culture and to your strategy. You've tested it at interview. You know that. You know they've got the skills, but actually their behaviors when they arrive don't work. And I would argue that the sooner you take those out, the more likely you are to get back into performing. Removing that negativism, for want of a better phrase, will improve the rest of the organization. And we've all seen it. Caroline's there shaking her head going, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because we've seen people that have arrived, have been brilliant on a piece of paper, have got all the skills you want, but their tone of voice, their style, their own personal values just antagonize the rest of the organization. It even winds up the IT manager, and that's the worst thing you can do. Anyone got anything that they want to add to that for the rest of the group?
I think I would touch on what Caroline and I can't remember the name of the other person who was talking earlier.
Catherine.
And going back to that last slide as well, it's definitely so that in Providence Road there's a lot of passion and team and individual dedication, but I think the thing that becomes a problem is where, yeah, you definitely get people who are burnt out, maybe who've been there too long as well. We've got a few people who are great at achieving some of the individual targets of their job, but they've just been around a little bit too long sometimes, not all the time. One person in particular, pretty much everything they say will be, oh, I'll try this, but I really don't think it's going to work. And you're just thinking, like, you've got to give it a go. You can't be poo-pooing the thing you're about to try before you've even tried it, because if you go into this new piece of work with a new client, potentially a client who needs G'ing up from the beginning, and your attitude is a little bit doom and gloom, you're not going to get anywhere.
That is a really valid point there, Tom. You know, you do get people who have been there, done that, seen it, have the T-shirt when it's failed before, when it's worked before even as well, but don't want to be a part of this same way that they've tried before, because, you know, we all know that it's cyclical. And it's those that I mentioned before that either have to be coached and brought along and convinced that this is the right way, which is what Tom's talking about, or is it time to move on? Is
people
it time
don't like
to take
change, really, do they?
Some people don't, you know. Lynn's got a hand up as well. Lynn.
Always Another Way. We're improving mental wellbeing in West Cumbria. It's quite a hard thing to sell because obviously it's really low level, so it's really hard to sort of like get that across to many funders, but we have been on the up lately. We were really struggling. We had a sort of like a look at our strategy, and we had a really poor turnaround of staff a year ago, and we looked at what we could do for our staff. One of them was just to take off one of their on their contracts, was to say that they couldn't get a mortgage because it wasn't ticking over each year. And so, you know, for them, we're only a team of 10 people, so for them that was really difficult. They couldn't get on the property ladder, so we would turn around staff left, right and centre. And I'd like to say that this last year, since we've done that, we've kept all of our staff in place. We've looked at different little tiny benefits that they can have. We work in schools, so we introduced term time contracts for those members of staff. So I feel like we've really been working hard, and it's been really interesting to listen to this today. Thank you.
Yeah, you're totally right. You know, that benefit package can really add that value to the behaviours, which really then delivers your culture, which, as I keep reiterating, really delivers your strategy. You know, and you talk about it's very difficult, to engage with beneficiaries and I'm presuming raising funds at the moment, like it is for everybody. And you know, we all take it very personally. But I think, you know, with the right team and the right purpose, you will be able to raise those funds that you need going forward.
We've definitely turned a corner this last year. We've been asked to speak at events, and we definitely got some momentum behind us because we've got the strategy and the values in place, and we're all singing from the same hymn sheet at the moment. So hopefully, long may it continue. But yeah, it's difficult.
Congratulations, well done. That's brilliant to hear that you've turned that corner. If you ever want any advice on any more tactics, then please do give me a shout.
Thank you.
Let me move on the slide. So just to try and wrap things up, because I'm mindful that, you know, we are, how long have we got left, Christina? 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah, we generally tend to say around 1:45, but I'm happy to stay on for as long as you need to. If people that want to listen, that's fine by me.
So just to wrap things up then, and then open the floor up to questions or comments. Strategy lives or dies through your culture. I can't keep reiterating that enough. Culture really turns your plans into living and breathing practice. It really turns it into that business plan, into the style and the tone of how people deliver their work on a daily basis. And when that matches, that's when you thrive. I mean, we just heard then from Lynn how they've turned a massive corner between losing lots of staff, between really struggling to raise funds, probably spending too much time recruiting than doing the do, so to speak. And now have turned that corner just through little tiny tweaks in the culture and in the support, which has made a massive impact on the organisation. What a great little narrative to pause on and open the floor up to questions. I just thought I'd stick another quote up before we finish. Culture really is that invisible hand. It shapes how your strategy is delivered on a daily basis. You won't see it, but you'll definitely feel it. Thanks, Jane. Enjoy your next meeting. Yeah, and that's it from me. I've been Matthew Hickey. We are Social Intent, and thank you to Charity Recruit for inviting me in. Any questions from the floor?
Sorry, Emily.
No, go ahead.
Something I picked up on something Tom mentioned as well earlier. How much of a part does kind of change management play in building that culture and strategy piece, you know, alignment piece, if you like?
We've all heard the comments about change is the only thing which is constant in business and all that type of academic stuff. You're always going through change. You're always understanding and learning about what's working and what's not. Take you, for example, Caroline, what you did 10 years ago to fundraise versus what you do now is a lot different. What does that mean to performance? It improves. Everyone that's saying thank you. But what I would say is that, when you are going through this change, like what Lynn was talking about, that communication, that openness, that taking people with you is vitally important. The worst thing you can do as a leader is introduce something in the cold light of day. By just throwing something out there at the 11th hour and saying, we're not doing that anymore, we're now doing this, without any rationale, without any clarity, without any communication, will really piss people off. It will take people's behaviours and really make their hair stand up on end, and they will stop performing for you. So you have to take people on that journey when you are changing. The culture of change is just as important when you are evolving from previous strategy into new strategy. And those tiny tweaks can make all the difference.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much, Matt. I think that's been really useful for lots and lots of our audience today. Just as an aside, actually, Catherine and I have done a podcast together, so that's coming out in November. So if you want to listen to Catherine talking further about her journey over on the Wirral, do tune in to our podcast later on in November. But thanks so much, Matthew. I've really enjoyed listening to what you've had to say. We will put a post on LinkedIn later to say thank you, but also if you have been listening today and you'd like to comment on that, it would be really appreciated. It helps raise awareness of our events. We get really good speakers like Matthew, and we do this once a month. So the more you help us market that, the better the conversation and the sessions that we have. So we'd really appreciate it if you're able to do that. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you want to contact Matthew afterwards, we'll be tagging him into our LinkedIn event, so you'll be able to LinkedIn posts, so you'll be able to contact him through there, or obviously feel free to drop us a line and we can put you in touch. But yeah, thank you so much.